Hi, Leroy. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm glad you could make it. And I have to say, before we start, I'm quite a big fan of Boohoo. My wallet a bit less. But maybe before we dive into the subject today around security, can you present what Boohoo is as an organization and what your role is, please?
Yeah, definitely. So, hi, Yasmin. Thank you for having me. So, in essence, to answer your question, Boohoo are an online e-commerce website. We started in 2006 and have grown significantly in a range of acquisitions in terms of looking at those high street brands and bringing them more into the e-commerce platform. My role is head of IT. It's a very long job title. So it is head of IT looking after service operations, DevOps, and network and infrastructure. But I just usually keep it head of IT.
Makes it easier, right? Not
Definitely.
not to say that it's an easy role, because my God, you're looking after a very, very wide scope here. So as you said, you've grown quite exponentially, and I know since maybe 2006 you've also quite expanded internationally. I know you're just off your Turkey trip. Can you tell us a bit more around what did this growth have as an impact for the organization, and also how has it shaped your IT strategy and vision?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one aspect with Boohoo, after being there for the last 3 years, is we haven't really. There's been some organic growth, but it's been really through the acquisitions. And when we acquire these organizations, we put them onto our platforms and our systems.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting 3 years in comparison to where we started and where we are now. Off the back of that, I was pretty keen in terms of making sure we have identity management and also privilege access management within Boohoo. We didn't have that before, and with Okta, or we've taken on Okta now, we've got identity management and also a range of different elements that increase our security posture here.
Thank you for sharing this. And you've talked about adding elements that you didn't have before, and you've
Yeah.
mentioned security. When it comes to the notion of security and trust, can you tell us a bit more in your perspective? Why is it important to you and your team, but also for your collaborators?
Yeah, definitely. So, myself and my team, in terms of the service operations team, working hand in hand with the cybersecurity team, it's ideal for us to see things from a single pane of glass. So we've got a lot of syslogs going into a particular portal, and we're able to assess human behavior to make sure we know if you're logging in from a particular location, you are who you say you are. So the zero trust aspect really adds value into that element of things. On top of it, too, I think with the acquisitions, it's provided some technical debt, and I'm really all about innovation, automation, and ensuring that our foundations are strong. So going forward in the next acquisition, what we can possibly do to make sure our foundations are strong, but you utilize Okta
Mhm.
alongside our productivity apps to really benefit us in that identity access management piece. The last piece really is also looking at our joiners, movers, and leavers, and we call it JML. We didn't really have that in place. Everything was done manually from our HR systems or applications throughout to IT provisioning. And we've literally taken a step back, looked at that entire process, and looked at how we can automate it going forward. So we're working alongside yourselves in terms of that access. That access management, and then what else we can do from an end user device perspective in terms of how we roll out kit with zero touch to ensure that when you do open your laptop, your entire profile downloads and you're good to go. So making everything pretty much frictionless from here.
Okay, I love that you mentioned the frictionless aspect. What we hear a lot is for organizations who have a challenge between, security aspect and the end user experience that you want to have, which is,
Yeah.
usually it's a seamless one that you want to have. Can you tell us a bit more around how did you actually execute that on your in your context, and what was the feedback from your end users?
Yeah, definitely. So, our end users, if you were asking me this question about 2 years ago, I'd have said it was pretty straightforward. And the reason being is the average age of our end users were 16 to 25-year-olds. So, in essence, they use tools like this on a day to day basis in terms of single sign on and multi factor authentication. What really helped us now is the fact of the pandemic and having people working remotely, ensuring that if you're leaving your laptop at a coffee shop, going to get a coffee or going to the loo, that you don't leave your laptop unlocked. And we've got the right security measures behind that to make sure it's either locked. You then re-authenticate back onto your VPN, or you then get back onto your SSO aspects of things. So I think the pandemic has helped us a lot in terms of increasing the adoption within Boohoo for Okta, looking at SSO and MFA. We have got some policies around what we do with MFA in terms of how many hours we allow a connection to be connected before we disable, and then you need to reconnect again. And that's by looking at a range of different metrics that we go through with our customer success manager.
That's very interesting because you've mentioned quite a lot of different notions here. But I heard, productivity onboarding for your end users, and obviously providing that security from the end user perspective. We can clearly hear you talk, and thank you for sharing. What was their feedback and the impact. I'd be interesting to understand as well what was the impact on your IT team, right? In terms of what was the experience enabling Okta, but
Yeah.
also what the value that was brought on for your team.
Yeah, so everything, I guess we look at everything as a journey. In terms of the project implementation, we kind of knew we wanted to be delivered. I've got experience in terms of automating these types of processes already before in the past, looking at possibly RPA, which is robotic process automation. But in terms of the experience with Okta and with Bytes during the implementation, it was good. With their professional services, we had the usual governance in terms of what you expect for a project was in there. I think what stood out after the implementation is more or less the service reviews. I've had a range of service reviews with suppliers. Personally, I think I strongly believe the service reviews with Okta are pretty good. Reason being is it's not just this is what we've done from an incident, a change. There's more trending and analysis and how we can better utilize certain components or products we've purchased from yourself, and what can we do to help increase the adoption. It's also making sure Okta are entwined really with our strategy. So we do have yearly strategy meetings where we invite our key suppliers in, and we tell them what we've got on our roadmap and how they can, and they feed in how they can possibly feed into that. So it's been a very good relationship, very transparent and very honest, to be fair. Project delivery was great. We had one or two issues, as everyone will, and we put together a hypercare team to make sure we mitigate those, because what we really want is make sure users have a positive output with Okta and a positive experience. Again, getting back to that frictionless aspect of things. So yeah, it's been good overall.
Okay, thanks for sharing it. I'm sure that our first organization would be super appreciative of your feedback. I guess an IT perspective, and your team managing it and the different missions that they have to focus on. Usually, the feedback we hear is when you embark on projects like that, is how much time is my team gonna have to put in an effort in managing a solution like Okta? Can you
Yeah,
tell us a bit more around what does this structure look like for you and your team?
yeah, definitely. So I don't have any metrics to hand, but if I was to talk you through the process initially, the as is process, it was we'll get a new starter. Said new starter, HR will populate their ticket, or HR will fill them in within our HR system. Off the back of that, they'll then raise their IT ticket within our ITSM tool. We will then get the ticket, or my team will get the ticket, create the user, and then kind of mark the task as complete. They might come back with, we need access to this, or one or two other permission roles, and we'll get that sorted. That relied a lot on two individuals. So someone from HR doing the right thing, and someone from IT making sure they pick it up in a timely manner and they action it. Now, the to be, or the as is, which is now, is HR log that ticket. They automatically submit it and put the individual's leave date. That automatically filters through the system without any intervention, goes into our ITSM tool, gets a ticket raised, and also goes into Active Directory and disables them on the day that they're leaving, which is massively beneficial. That allows my team to be able to take them away from the mundane stuff, but also help them increase their capabilities on other things that are more complex or they're more interested in terms of learning and development. So that's a real benefit that Okta's given my organization here from an HR and an IT perspective. And as from my perspective, we are looking at how else we can tie Okta into a range of cloud applications our end users use. The old behavior of Boohoo was individuals will go out, purchase third-party cloud applications without consulting IT. Right now in the new world, and it's something my manager, Joel Graham, has been able to do, is bring people together and bring the functions within Boohoo together. It's the engagement with IT, within IT. So now we make sure any third-party apps, when they're going for renewals or any new third-party apps, are all integrated within the SSO aspect of things, making it, again, the first and single point where end users go to access or authenticate against their apps.
That makes absolute sense, and you've kind of spotted the what we hear a lot from our customers as being
Yeah.
one of our benefit is around the capabilities we have to integrate with multiple applications and ecosystems. Can you tell us a bit more in reflection and maybe taking a step back? What stood out from an Okta perspective when you had to make the decision of choosing your identity provider?
Yeah.
And also, I believe you have worked with one of our partner called Bytes. If you could tell us as well a bit more, what was their involvement in that process?
Yeah, definitely. So Bytes to us are VAR, so value added reseller. We went to Bytes with a particular problem statement, and that was looking at, I want to be able to get my team focusing on something else and something more productive, and look to automate this. And having some history of how I've done this before in the past. They held a Bytes identity workshop, and we walked through the solutions and what they recommended. And the key thing about Bytes is they weren't out there just trying to offer us the most expensive tool out there so they can make a bigger margin. They actually listened to our problem statement, our requirements, and identified Okta as a key solution for us. On top of that, too, I utilized Gartner just to see where Okta fell within that Gartner right-hand quadrant, because I am aware the likes of Microsoft can do something similar, etc. So we had to go through and make sure we benchmark things accordingly. And that's the exercise we went through with Bytes. So having gone through a RFP with yourself and two other incumbents, we felt Okta stood out mainly due to the capabilities and the roadmap. And capabilities from a perspective where initially, when we log onto our VPN, we weren't able to authenticate onto it. Literally, you log onto the VPN and you're straight on our network. With the products we purchased, Okta allowed us to authenticate against our Active Directory using the app, so that we know you are who you say you are. That you are, for instance, myself, authenticating in Turkey without any security prompts or issues there. So that was really beneficial, and that stood out. Key thing is also some acquisitions you've gone through. I know Auth0 you've gone through, and as I mentioned before, the roadmap in terms of what else you can do, how you integrate into a range of different tech stacks. And I believe, for instance, we're looking to deploy Intune in the future. So it's all
Right.
looking at that capability and how you integrate into that. And that's what we look forward to.
Okay, that's great to hear. And from your perspective, obviously you've done already a big part of the work. I guess can you tell us a bit more about what's next for Boohoo, and what are your vision for the future?
Yeah, definitely. So from my perspective, I guess I know we've been talking security here, so probably worthwhile saying the why I didn't have security in my title. So I used to look after security, but in essence, this and when I was looking after security, this fell in my remit alongside my service ops aspect of things in terms of how we automate things. What I'll be looking at alongside my peer, who's head of IT security now, is more looking at privilege access. So how do we make sure we grant individuals that privilege access? And also customer access in regards to our customers are who they say they are. I know there's a range and there's an increase on bot traffic in terms of creating accounts on a range of different sites. So it's kind of stopping it there and seeing what we can do to provide a better quality of service to our customers, really. And that's where we're going so far. But we're excited to see what else is on the roadmap going forward and how we can get involved. We are heavily involved in all the beta aspects of things too on our side. So yeah, very much happy with the solution and what we've got here.
So are we. I'm quite excited about the coming next phases and keeping our partnership well alive.
Yeah.
I know also we have touched basically on your current use case, which is mainly around how do you secure access for your collaborators. Are you looking at anything on the customer identity side? Is that on your radar at all?
Yeah, so looking at our end users, so sorry, when I say end users, I know I've got the internal individuals, but we're also looking at our customers in terms of customer identity. So that should mitigate any bot creation of accounts, erroneous accounts, which shouldn't be created, because I know there's been an increase. So yeah, definitely that's on the cards. But also
Okay.
seeing what else you Okta either acquire or you develop within your roadmap too.
I'm sure we'll be talking about that at Octane for sure. Um, and maybe one last question for you, Leroy. If you had one piece of advice to give to other organization going through the same type of journey,
Yeah.
what would it be?
Um, Immerse yourself on it. It's a very interesting journey. You won't realize or recognize certain technical debts or issues you've got before you can even onboard the solution. So it's really beneficial for us before we even went with the solution and going through the implementation phase with your PS team. We had a range of prerequisites internally, like what we needed to do with our Active Directory, with our OU structure, how we wanted the data to look within core HR. So it gave us that real discovery and due diligence about us ourselves, how we operate, and how we would want the data to operate going forward. What's been key off the back of this is now we've got, I like to call it a microservice. So we could also plug in our Okta microservice into a range of third-party apps alongside the SSO. So if we need any integrations with new systems, besides the SSO aspect of thing, it becomes a source of rich data that we can just connect via APIs throughout. So yeah, that it's been very beneficial and it's given us a wide scale of value here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Leroy, for all of the experiences that you've shared with us today. And really excited to see what the future holds for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Yasmin. Take care.